Welcome to Kava and Kettlebells, where we talk about kava, fitness, and life. Let's get kavafied.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to Kava and Kettlebells. This is Charles.
Hey guys, this is Heidi. Thank you so much for tuning back in. If you haven't already, please take 5 seconds and go ahead and subscribe to our channel, like this video, and please share with your friends and family. As you know, we do not monetize off this. We do not have any sort of sponsors, so we pay for this ourselves. We don't have the money to, pay to push this video anymore. So we really rely on you guys sharing with your friends and family, engaging in the comments, liking, and subscribing. All right. On today's episode, we are going to be talking to Ashley Giannoni and Tessa Morris. They are the owners of Alchemist Kava Bar and Lemonade Botanical Beverage Company. We are going to be talking about the mommy wine culture. So that is that sort of social phenomenon that is going on that really just sort of normalizes and encourages moms to use alcohol to cope with the stresses of parenthood and use that as an outlet. So I'm really excited to talk to these women. They are moms and they are owners in the botanical industry. So I'm excited to talk to them about, their experience with this. So Ashley, I would love for you to just kind of introduce yourself to our audience. Tell us a little bit about how you got into, owning Alchemist, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
So my name is Ashley. I'm the owner of Alchemist Kava in East Naples, Florida. We opened in the summer of 2023. We opened the same month that I had my twin boys, who are now 1.5. I had previously been a teacher for nearly 10 years before opening the Kava Bar, and it was just something, it was a passion of mine and my husband's. We fell in love with the botanical community. We felt like there was a need for one in East Naples, and we were like, why not? So I left teaching, opened the bar, and I've been so grateful for the opportunities and the community that we've built there. And so awesome getting to know you guys and having done a previous podcast with you. So thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for having us back.
Absolutely. And yes, for our listeners, if you've listened on the audio platform, we have interviewed both Tessa and Ashley in audio form, and I'm excited to get you guys back on a video form again. So Tessa, I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself as well and how you got into Lemonade.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tessa. I own Lemonade, the botanical beverage company. So I launched back in March of last year, so I'm still very new in my launch phase. My background is in marketing. I do niche marketing and telecom, so it's not really related to this space, but I fell in love with this space because so I stopped drinking 3 years ago and alcohol, and I stumbled into my first kava bar, which actually the first kava bar I ever went to was in Naples. I went to Cosmic Kava, and I started drinking RTDs, like the kratom beverages, and I loved those, but I am like my marketing brain started working because nobody was really advertising the way that I thought these could be advertised. Because for me, I'm like, I had never heard of this. Like when I first went into a kava bar, I'm like, what is all of this? Like, what does bula mean? What does all of this mean? Even the menu, I'm like confused, and I felt old because it's like, then you got all the Gen Zers behind the bar. And I'm like, I didn't want to ask them because I didn't want them to think I was lame. So I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I couldn't order. So I went up, and I'm usually like a very forward person, but that's how nervous it made me. So I go into the fridge, and I open the fridge up, and I pulled out one of these drinks, not mine yet. And anyway, so that was like my intro to this world. And then I start looking at it, and I'm like, okay, I don't love these ingredients. I don't love like the marketing, the branding on these. So how could I make this different? And I kind of, just married those two passions together. And that's how I came up with the concept for Lemonade.
I will say that Lemonade, if you followed us, especially on Instagram and previous audio episodes, you guys know that Lemonade is probably one of our more favorite seltzers. And that's because, just like Tessa alluded to, a lot of seltzers on the market still have things like sucralose in there, still have some ingredients that, if you're trying to just kind of mind what you're consuming, I know especially for Heidi and I, things like erythritol, sucralose, there comes a point where if we just have too much, it's uncomfortable. So Lemonade, we really like it because there is none of those artificial ingredients in there. It's a very, very clean seltzer, and it feels great. So
yeah, we love Lemonade. It's probably one of our favorite botanical beverages. Now, Tessa, you are also a mom, right?
I'm a mom. I have 3 kids. So I have a 9-year-old son, I have a 6-year-old daughter, and a 4-year-old boy.
And how has that been for both of you? Like just the idea of using botanicals like as parents, like with kids?
especially
Do you go
twins.
first?
Yeah,
Sure.
especially twins.
She's got like babies too, so you go first.
So I really love that I'm raising my kids to see and live by example that you don't need alcohol to have fun. My husband and I were really into craft beer for many years. I wouldn't necessarily even per se that we're sober, but we don't drink. So, and there's no need to because we found botanicals and I'm really appreciative of that.
Right.
But I have these little babies that, they were born 21 days after we opened.
That is like so crazy to me. That's amazing. I love that.
And our office in our business essentially turned into a nursery / office. They'd been there since they were like 2 weeks old. So for us, it was, I'm raising my kids to see and live by example and understand that they don't need booze. They don't need this concept of you have to drink for mommy and daddy to unwind, or you have
Right.
to, like, I don't want them to feel like mommy and daddy push them into like, oh, I have to drink because I have children or because I had a stressful day. And so I think it's really powerful, to be in this space and to change that narrative. And we're seeing, right now we're seeing like the younger generations are pushing back on alcohol. They're not drinking, they're turning to botanicals. And, that's something I think that's going to carry through with our children. And I know we're all moms and fathers and, I think we're setting a good example for them. We call my babies the Kava babies.
I love it.
You guys have been there and we set them up in their little high chairs. They had little high chairs. Your daughters were helping feed them and stuff. And it's like, sometimes Kava bars can be seen as a place where it's adults only or only Gen Z. And at Alchemist, we try to welcome people of, all generations. And we do, aside from like Friday and Saturday nights, it's a family friendly place. And we want people to feel like they can bring their children, and there's activities. We have an art club on Sunday that's free, and we have people bring their children. You brought your daughter.
Yeah. I brought her a couple times.
So, just changing that narrative with botanicals and Kava and having my kids, see that there is an alternative in life and that, mommy and daddy don't need to be drunk. It's also a lot easier to take care of your kids when you're not drinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know about all of you, but once I hit 30, if I had like a glass of wine, I'd be like, one glass.
Overparenting is the worst.
Yeah.
It's like a special form of hell.
Yeah.
You're making it just extra hard on yourself. But I like what you said about changing the narrative around the botanicals, because this is something that we get a lot too. It's not to like hate on other places, but sometimes, you'll pull up like Kava bar and they'll pull up like smoke shop.
Yeah.
There are some of those out there and it's like,
Oh, they also say they're coffee. Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah. And it's like you go in, it's like blacked out windows.
Yeah.
It has like a little lit sign that says Kava. If you walk in, it's like a smoke shop. Like not super welcoming for people coming in. And I think for a while, Kava bars have been somewhat of a, I guess you say, counterculture.
Yeah.
But
Like a fringe
Yeah.
space,
But I think there's more Kava bars coming out where they're super welcoming. Again, like even back when we lived in Tucson and the Kava bar just opened up, we brought our girls there.
Yeah.
Like our daughter wanted to have her birthday party there.
That's so
I
cute.
saw that. That was so
You can't
cute.
do that at a bar.
No. Yeah.
So
And so I think that's awesome. And so you were talking about your daughter went to like the painting and stuff.
So I brought her a couple of Sundays. I forget what the first one was, some type of painting. And then the second one was the cookie decorating. She loved that.
I know. I have a little picture of her doing it and she was all excited to be there.
And she always, so it's cute because my kids act like it's their second home when I take them to Alchemist. And both of them, and they all like pull out the games, and Ashley's very patient with them. But when the last time we were on our way there, they were both in the back of the car and they started going, Kava bar, Kava bar, like a chant. And they like run in there, and there's this little mini pool table that they get out, and like again, she's so patient because they'll like get all the little balls out and they're like all over the floor. And I'm like mortified because I'm trying to chill, and they're everywhere. And anyways, they love it there. I actually got Roman that mini pool table for Christmas, and he freaked out. He's like, at the Kava bar. I'm like, yeah. But yeah, they like go right up to the bar and they'll order a lemonade.
Like, I want a lemonade on the rocks.
Yeah, a lemonade. She always wants strawberry lemonade, and then she wants the sparkles in it. And
That
so
is
they
so
like
cute.
make her this
she got
special.
her drink.
She does. She has her own drink at the Kava bar.
So
That's awesome.
I'm curious, and like I'm talking from obviously I'm the guy in the group, and I'm the dad.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for being patient with us.
Here-
Girl talk on Sunday
I'm
morning.
here to give a different perspective, right? So, and I'll pull my perspective in a little bit. But I do, kind of want to ask you all, like, where do you think the like mommy wine culture kind of came from? And I mean, our goals are older. Our oldest is 10. So even looking back to like 2014, I even remember, social media, so many like memes and reels about, oh, like mom needs like wine, and like even movies like insinuating that like moms like have to have like wine at the end of the day. So wait, where do you all think like it came from? And
I think it came from our parents. I mean, I saw a reel recently, and it was a mom had a Stanley cup, and it was part of the mommy wine culture, like TikTok reels that we are going to be talking about. And she had her Stanley, and she said, "You can fit an entire bottle of wine in here." And she was on her way to her son's soccer game.
damn.
Oh man.
And it's like, okay, I get it. I'm not here to bash anyone who drinks. I mean, I don't personally really drink, but occasionally I have like a glass of wine or something. And I don't think it's inherently damaging to have like one glass of wine in front of your kid. My history, I grew up with an alcoholic family member. And so I have an extreme example growing up of that type of culture. Whereas probably most people, it's like they do, if they witness their parents drink, it's, a glass of wine with, dinner or whatever, or a couple beers here and there with their buddies. I just think when you start talking about it the way that I saw on that reel, oh, you can fit an entire bottle of wine in here. It's like, I think about like when I post on social media or when I do anything now, everything is saved on the internet. So I start thinking about, well, what if my kids saw this in 10 years? And how would that make them feel? And I would feel, I mean, people might think that that's being dramatic, but I'd be like, oh, my mom couldn't go watch my soccer game without an entire bottle of wine.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just think it's bizarre. And I think I do, going back to what I was saying, I think it comes from our parents, because back in the day, I mean, there was no social media, but it's like, even my parents' friends, like, they would all be drinking and having parties right in front of us. And, a lot of the parents there, I mean, at least where I'm from, they were all super drunk. And we thought it was funny at the time. But like, the older I got, the more like, I guess, comfortable I got with it. Because I mean, I started drinking when I was a teenager, and it was probably because of how I grew up and like the example that was set for me. I mean, I think I had my first drink of alcohol, I was 14 years old. Like, that's so sad. And it's like, if my kids snuck into my Luminades or like my Kava, like, would that make me like, they shouldn't be having it right now, but it wouldn't give me the same like feeling as if they snuck into, a bottle of tequila at 14 years old.
I have never drank a Luminade and not felt like I could drive. I have definitely drank 2 glasses of wine and felt like I cannot drive.
Well, totally.
And
it's
it changes your personality.
100%. It's like, so then there's that too, right? It's like being a mom and, drinking kratom or kava, it's not going to change your personality, and it's not going to make you inebriated to where you can't take care of your kids, or you don't remember, or you put them into these dangerous situations. Of course you can overconsume. I mean, you can do that with literally anything. However, if it's responsibly drank, then you're good.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that is frustrating about the whole mommy wine culture movement, is the idea that our kids are like so crazy, so bad. Like, being a mom is so hard that I need to turn to an entire bottle of wine. And like, what a terrible message that we're sending our kids, that you are so stressful. You were such a mistake. Like, that's what they're internalizing, is like, I am such a stress to my parents' life that they need to drink this beverage, that then they act all crazy and they act all weird, and then they don't remember, or they're not answering my questions, or they just don't remember the next day, the things we talked about. And that's what I think is a really damaging message that we're sending our kids.
And I mean, like, I think anybody can attest to this when they drink. You're more likely to argue with your partner when you're drinking versus not. So how many times have kids seen, their parents become antagonistic with each other because they're drinking? I think this had to be like 6 or 7 years ago. I got for a Christmas gift from a student, which, first off, they shouldn't have brought it to school. Yeah. I'm not kidding. They brought me a bottle. Yeah, it was in a wine bag. They put it on my desk, and inside it was a picture of them on the wine bottle, and it said, "I'm sorry I make you drink, Miss Forrest," which was my maiden name. And I was like, okay, the thought that went into this from their mother or father was fantastic, but
oh my god.
I mean, like, how do you send your kid to school with that to give to the teacher? I like went to my assistant principal. I'm like, I don't have booze on my desk because I brought it to school.
Yeah.
It's a kid gave it to me. I'm going to put it in the office now. And they're like, they brought it in. I'm like, yeah. The deputy's like, what? I'm like, don't worry, I don't want to get the kid in trouble. But but I was just like, it's funny, but it's also to the point where it's like, that's a little borderline, like questionable. You send your kid, it makes them feel bad too to see like this is like
exactly, yeah.
like we know it's humor, but does a 12-year-old like do they understand the humor behind this? Like that makes them they might internalize that and feel bad about it.
Well, I think too, like with kids and just even like being a parent, and you all obviously know too, but like you say one thing or you do a couple things and like they soak that in like a sponge.
Yes.
Even going to like high school age, like I remember even looking back to myself as a teenager, what I saw, like, especially like, when I look to people like father figures, right? Like even younger guys in their 20s, if I saw them doing something, I'd be like, okay, that's how I need to act. Or that's like, going out and like getting drunk and drinking. That's just what you do. Right. Or if you have a bad day, you go home and you crush a 6-pack. That's like a normal thing, right? Especially like for guys, and like the guy culture part of it is like you go to the garage and slam beers and like that's what you do, right?
Crush it on your forehead.
And so like stuff like that, and like as stupid as it sounds, like, and we all make fun of it, like, when you're under the 18, whatever your brain's developing, like that stuff sticks.
Yeah.
And while it might seem harmless to us, like like that kid might have been like, all right, well, like I'm giving my teacher this wine because obviously she can't handle kids, so when she gets home she just gets drunk,
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's that humor. Like it's the humor that drives it. It's the likes, all the memes, all the merchandise. Like there's shirts, there's tank tops, there's sunglasses that it's like, it's wine o'clock or mommy happy hour, like all this stuff. And I think it makes people feel like they're part of like this group. And we did an interview before this, with Lisa, and she said that she did not start drinking until she became, a mom. And I wonder, what is it about society that we've created like this club where it's like, if you want to be in the mom club, you need to drink. I didn't really feel like that. Like, I didn't feel like that just because alcohol was never really part of, again, once you become a parent, like it's real shitty to parent when hungover.
You learn that real quick. The first time you do it. You're like, oh no.
But did you guys feel like that?
Yeah, I think that goes back to how I was raised and my background. It was very much a part of my childhood. Overconsumption of alcohol, and that to the point of 3 glasses of wine. It was like, alcoholic. And so I think for me, it's like you kind of, once I became a parent, and as you guys all know, when you hold your first little baby and you look them in their eyes, you just want to be better. And so for me, growing up that way, I started drinking when I was 14 years old, alcohol, and I drank and drank and drank. And by the time I turned 21, I was like over it. That's how much I drank when I was a teenager. And so I knew, I'm like, okay, I feel like I was aware enough to know. I think I did that because of how I was raised. And that was the example that was set for me. And so that's what I did. I binge drank in high school and in college. And then I had my first son, I was 23. So I was still, my peers were still very much in the party scene, very much fresh out of college, always at the bars. And then I'm at home with my baby. And I drank a little bit, after I had him, but then really I just had this like come to Jesus moment with myself over it. And I drank, over the years since I've had him, he's 9 now, I've drank a couple of times, but I haven't really drank in like 3 years because I just, especially after I found, the kratom and kava world, I didn't really feel a need to at all. But yeah, I just feel like once you get to that point, you have your first kid, you just, with yourself, that can go one of two ways. I do feel like the people who engage in the mommy culture, though, to this point, I don't think they really know the damage that it's doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm hoping by having this conversation. We're not trying to be judgmental at all, but I because of how I was raised, I feel like it's so important for me to speak up about it because I know what it's like to be the child in that scenario. It's like, I think that they don't realize the damage that they're inflicting and how it can really affect kids as adults. It's like it affects them as kids. It makes them feel bad and scared. And then they're adults and they have to unlearn that behavior. I really had to unlearn it. And I'm glad I did at such a young age. Looking back, like, yeah, I'm a teenager out drinking and it was really unsafe, the things that I would do. And now I'm like, I have a 6-year-old daughter. Like I'm going to lock her up when she's that age. Oh my gosh. I would deserve it. But yeah, it's like I think adults just really don't understand what it's doing. And so I hope that by speaking as the child in the scenario, I can kind of wake some people up to that.
And I think honestly, this concept and this feeling towards it is why Tessa and I, once you brought your product in and I tried it and we got to talking, like now, like half the time we'll be there talking about, this concept of mommy wine and how we want to change that narrative. And I think we were really on board with that together. And we've talked with Heidi, we've all gone out before for dinner and stuff. And it's just changing that concept. And we really want it. Like, I think Luminade does a great job. When I have people come in to Alchemist and buy Luminade, it is not my stereotypical kava bar goers. A lot of times I'll have new customers come in. They'll be like, I've tried this at a med spa, or I've tried this, somewhere that isn't a traditional place where they would sell botanicals. And they'll come in and be like, this is so cool. I love this concept. It's like a bar, but it's not. And I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. So like you'll bring in a lot of these people that maybe, that would have been part of the mommy wine culture, but they're changing the narrative. They're changing what their kids see. And I think, that's what we try to do with Alchemist as well. And I think a large part, that's what you guys are doing with your media, is just changing that concept and, making it mainstream, making it so people are aware of what it is. It isn't scary. It doesn't have to be unknown. It's a safer alternative to what a lot of people are turning to unwind at the end of their day.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a really good point, Tessa, that the idea when, parents drink all the time, that becomes very stressful for the children, and they can develop anxiety, not knowing how is mom or dad going to come home today? Like, are they going to be inebriated? Like, how are they going to behave? How do I need to behave to please them? Are they going to be upset? Are they going to be angry? And that is very stressful on a kid. And that creates, anxiety to not have that stability and to not have that predictableness. Like, as a parent, you should be 100% predictable to your kids. You should be boring. Like, they should be able to predict what is going to happen, how you're going to behave. And I feel like that mommy culture really is detrimental to kids in that sense, that just stress that it adds to them.
I think too, I think like COVID era also, because everyone was at home and everyone was at home with their kids. Yeah. I do think like 2020 on, I feel like added a new layer to the whole idea of like, and I'm not, again, like I completely understand, like when you're around your kids all day, like.
Yeah, I mean, trust us.
Yeah,
like,
you guys homeschool?
Yeah,
I homeschool. I said like that.
We homeschool, we work from home, we are with them all the time, and it is stressful.
but I think like COVID, I don't know, adding their layer, because like everyone was at home, everyone was like quarantined with each other, you stuck together, and that's where I saw, the whole the mommy and wine stuff come up more. But it's interesting how you kind of said like the behavior pattern, because so many kids got kind of like screwed during that period.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Overall,
yeah, society, kids got screwed.
Yeah, but then you look at the stats too. How many people drank more during COVID and drank more at home and everything like that. So I think
DB
too
went up during COVID.
Yeah, absolutely.
all that. So I think too, like kids in that era, and not saying households who partook in this can't turn it around, but so many kids saw like their parents at home drinking, and the stress of COVID and quarantine lockdown and acting in a certain way. So I'll be curious too to see how like that group kind of views alcohol and looking back at their parents' behavior. Because I know back when we were quarantined too, like
that's when I got my medical marijuana cards.
I saw this really interesting study. This was recent, and I wouldn't be able to cite it. I could look it up, but these researchers asked a series of questions to kids, and I think they were like 7 years old to maybe 12. And one of the questions they asked was, is there any amount of alcohol that your parents can have? Like, what's the amount of alcohol that they have where you feel uncomfortable? And the majority of them said 1 drink.
Wow.
Wow.
Isn't that sad?
That's crazy.
And so it just seems so harmless, but and I've done it. I mean, I've had a glass of wine in front of my kids. And some of it's like, in other cultures, like they drink wine with every meal. They give kids wine over in Europe. And so it's like, it's very much cultural here too, though. And it's like, we don't do that with kids here, but like with adults, at dinner, they'll have a glass of wine, whatever. Like I said, I've been guilty of it too. But yeah, when I saw that study, I was like, that is so eye-opening. And I feel like people just don't listen to kids.
And as Americans, though, I mean, if you look at studies between Europe and America, Americans do everything excessively.
They do.
Yeah,
So
we do.
it's like a glass of wine in Spain is not the same as
Yeah.
a bottle of wine in the United States. I mean, I love being an American, but I'm telling you, like, there are different standards.
Yeah.
I remember
Sure.
reading like a pregnancy book. It was called Expecting Better by Emily Oyster. And it was like, she was a statistician from University of Chicago. She compiles all this data. And it's like, people in Europe will drink during their pregnancies,
Yeah.
but they drink a glass of wine. And in the United States, we're like,
Like equality.
absolutely no
We drink
alcohol.
a bottle.
And
you
that's
know.
why in America, they're like, we just tell people no, because a lot of people can't stop at
Yeah.
a glass of wine. And so that's sort of an epidemic in our country to begin with. I mean, I know there are other countries like England they are working on decreasing. Dry January comes out of England. It was a UK, it was like sort of like an initiative that they took.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
Yeah. So, and now people adopted it in January, and this is the time in the bar when I see a lot of new customers. But a lot of times we can hold those customers because they're like, I feel great. I don't feel like crap in the morning. It's like, yeah, because you're not drinking.
Yeah.
But I think it is, from what I'm seeing. I can't necessarily know all of the data right now, but like, it is an American, like sort of culture where it's getting drunk and having a good time. But like, we're starting to see, like, people are afraid of botanicals and kava, and they're like, well, I know somebody that died. It's like, do you? Like, how many people have died from alcohol and its socially and cultural norm? Like, how many people are getting sick? How many people have long lasting effects, especially with the new Attorney General, like, data that came out showing that alcohol.
It's linked to 7 different types of cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
directly linked. I mean, it's probably all types of cancer, to be honest, but they made a direct link to 7.
And I'm shocked that
Yeah.
it even came out with that data. Like, I'm shocked that it was even announced. But it's like, people have such, a stigma when it comes to botanicals, but they're not willing to look.
They don't bat an eye when it comes to alcohol.
Yeah, and we know of thousands of deaths every year because of alcohol.
Yeah, the CDC says that alcohol is one of the leading causes of preventable deaths. And I might butcher these numbers, but I think it was between 2015 and 2019, it was 140,000 deaths because of directly related to alcohol. And that's not including, drunk driving, domestic violence, all those indirect links to alcohol. And then because of the pandemic, COVID, between 2020 and 2021, it went up to 178,000, I believe. And that's crazy. Like, that's a lot of deaths. And I feel like people don't bat an eye. And the only deaths of kratom that I've ever read about were when they were also drunk. But that it gets blamed on, the kratom.
Other things in the system.
Yeah, they had other things in their system.
Adulterated extracts.
Yes.
And it's people who are just excessively using it.
Yes.
And so that's, the education in this case is so important.
But the numbers don't even compare to the drinking.
No, not at
because
all.
It's culturally accepted. I'm hopeful that one day it'll be like cigarettes, like 1950, everybody smoked, and it was like fine, like you could smoke on airplanes.
They used to have it, like, doctors would prescribe it if you're pregnant.
Yes, and
like,
you can remember when we were kids and you go into a restaurant like Chili's
like
or whatever,
Denny's
and
or
there was
something.
a smoking
Yes.
section, and now I'm like,
Yes.
that is nasty. But I mean, when I was growing up, one of my parents smoked, and they never made us sit in the smoking section. I was always so grateful because I thought it was freaking nasty.
Yeah, my dad
a meal
smoked.
without smoking.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And that's true.
So maybe one day alcohol
that.
would be like that, because it was just literally everybody smoked. And now if I see someone smoking, especially our age, I'm like, you smoke? Who smokes? I mean, I feel like now all of them vape, but like, who smokes for real anymore?
I think like we're starting to see some of that with how people act like at the bars and drunk. Like now it's like looking at that, it's like, it's so tacky, dude.
Yeah, it is.
Like getting drunk and getting sloppy and like seeing drunk people. I'm just like, at this point, I'm just like, I have no patience. I'm like, you're so... that's just so, again, it's just so tacky. It's cringe.
It is super cringe now. I was at a concert recently, a couple weeks ago. I went to Live Fest in Naples, and there was, and again, I think this goes into my background, but there was a lady next to me, and she was trash. It was 5 p.m. No, it was bad. We got there, and we sat on the lawn, and she was sleeping like this with her mouth open at 5 p.m.
Oh my God.
I'm thinking, do I want to sit by
in
you?
a public place with like hundreds of people?
There was no
at the Ritz-Carlton.
At the Ritz, I'm gonna go for it because it's, it's Naples. So anyway, she's like passed out like that, and then a couple hours later, I mean, she really is like she's standing next to me and she's still going. She's
Oh
like
my gosh.
she's like spilling on me. I'm like, we gotta get out of here. It's so bad. It's like, yes, even like strangers. Like it's like it doesn't even have to be a family member or a parent. Like strangers, when I'm around them and they are that sloshed, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
My husband and I, when we are on Marco visiting my in-laws, we'll be like, okay, let's go out, just the two of us, and we'll end up at a bar. And thankfully, in the plaza is also a kava culture, but we'll end up in the bar, and we're like, oh god, these people are terrible. Like we'll just see people just acting like fools, and we're like, let's just go over to kava culture. Like,
Dude, it's
you know,
it's a bad
I'm
experience.
grateful that there's an alternative in the plaza, but I'm like, I don't want to just be like with all these people that just act like fools.
And I think going back to, the whole mommy culture is that parents really, like you were saying, I don't think they understand that their kids see everything they're doing. And kids are they perceive a lot more than we give them credit for. And that's why I understand, one drink makes them uncomfortable because they can tell the difference in their parent with just one drink, and that makes them scared.
Yeah, and they know too, they're like, so one drink, that leads to 2 drinks, and that leads to 3 drinks, because that's what you do with alcohol. And part of my education with Illuminades is I'm like, okay, like if you're trying to switch, or like if you've never had kratom or kava, it's different than alcohol. Like you're not going to buy, because they're like, well, it's expensive. I'm like, well, you're not going to drink a 4-pack. You're not going to drink a 6-pack like you would beer. You will have one of these. And if it's your first time, you're not even going to have the whole thing.
Right.
And then you're going to be good. I'm like, if you feel good, do not add more.
Yeah.
So I think that type of education too for people is going to be really key here. So everybody gets the right dosage, you know?
Yeah. That's a good point too, because one of the biggest things and pushbacks, people will tell us, or they'll be like, oh, it's like so expensive. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? It's a pretty relative term, I feel like.
Because, yes, like when you go to a kava bar, like obviously there's a markup because they have margins. But even like if you're at home, and a lot of the mommy wine culture stuff is at home, right? You get a bottle and you go home.
Mommy happy hour.
And you cry on the couch and drink your sorrows away. But
not us.
Watch Vanderpump.
No, but a pound bag of traditional kava runs about $50.
Yeah.
And that can last you a month.
Absolutely.
Right?
It should last you a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kratom seltzer is yes, you could have half or one of them. Or even just like kratom, if you get the powder, that's something like a kilo of kratom powder is cheap relatively. And as long as you're not abusing it and going, over 10 grams a day, that's going to last you a long time. So when people say it's expensive, I'm like, all right, well, if I go to a bar, a mixed drink is like $20 now. All right, even alcohol,
even mocktails are we know that's what we get when we go
Yeah.
out.
So it's like the price thing, what I see, it's a little frustrating, but I understand it to some extent, but and I guess Ashley, this is kind of, I'm curious your perspective too. Like when people come into the bar and who have come from an alcohol background, what are some of the biggest hurdles for them to get into it? And especially maybe moms too, with kids and stuff. And Tessa, you can chime in too with people who've, drinking Illuminades who crossed over, but what are kind of the biggest barriers to entry do you see?
Absolutely. I think education component. I think when they walk in, obviously I'm going to let them know, you have to teach them about kava and kratom. You have to teach them about dosing. I think that's really important. You don't want someone to go home and feel sick.
Yeah.
So whenever a new person comes in, you have to look at their body weight. That plays a big factor too. If somebody is 85 pounds and they're 4'11", I'm going to be try 1 kava or 1 kratom to begin with. See how you feel and go from there. Never exceed 2 your first time.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big important piece. A lot of times what I find are when the moms come in and they'll come back and they'll be like, this is great. I
found the secret.
Yeah, they'll feel great. And as far as pricing goes, at Alchemist, so our drinks are all craft mocktails. We have happy hour from 11 to 1, 4 to 7, and 10 to midnight. It's BOGO on all our drinks. You can get 24 ounces times 2, so that's 48 ounces for $13.
That's so cheap.
That's
Yeah.
cheap.
You can get it without ice and just completely kratom or kava. So I think it's really important that people understand that this can be cost effective. Yes, there are bars where it's more expensive, but it just depends on where you go. It can be cost effective. It can make you feel great. You can drink it throughout the day, I've had people be like, "Can I drive with this?" I'm like, "Yeah, you can
Yes.
drive with this."
Yeah.
Now, if you're getting some of the D9 products, see how you feel.
Yeah, I probably don't want to drive.
Yeah. Like,
I would not drive
be
with
driving your
those.
Suburban down the
Yes.
street like, But like,
That's just for Kratom and Kava.
yeah. But like, I think I think people are shocked that like,
Yeah.
A, they can drink this all day if they want to, you know, like have one drink and drink it throughout the day and feel great. B, like there's no hangover. I do explain that it, you know, especially like kratom can act like coffee because it's a part of the coffee family. You want to stay hydrated the same way that you would with coffees, have water.
That's right. The electrolytes are so important.
Yes.
Kava has a reverse tolerance, so as
Which-
you drink it,
It saves money down the road. Like
Uh-huh.
alcohol's not like that.
That's
You need
so
more and
interesting.
more and more.
When I found that out, because my background is nursing, I used
Yeah.
to be a nurse years ago, and I have never ever heard of that.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so interesting.
people think you're lying. You're like,
They
no,
do.
I swear I
People
know.
don't believe it.
Yeah, you're like I'm that nerd that will have like the binder with like all the data because that, you know, I was a teacher. Like,
I know, that's why I love that about you when I first met you.
I was like, and we had like a college student that has a master or has a bachelor's in chemistry compile a lot of our information.
Oh, very
like,
cool.
So like what Tess, she's done an interview with us before when we sat down once. She like, you know, she helped us map out all of our content for being able to give consumers, you know, information, infographics, explain to them what Kava and Kratom are,
Nice.
you know, have them be more comfortable, but also put it in terms that people can understand.
Yeah.
So like when you go up, I mean, I think we had a fun time saying Mitragina speciosa. I think there's
Did
some.
you guys watch that interview?
No.
I don't know if I posted the blooper. I'll have to show you when we're done. Yeah, we were because it was me and Tess is her name too. So she was like, oh, Tessa and Tess, we like had this chat about kratom and kava and basically the mechanism of action when it enters your body. So we did that a while ago. Sometime, I don't know, maybe it was like July or something, maybe before that. But we kept mispronouncing because we said Gina a couple times.
Hey, I mean,
Moral of the story.
For our audience, that is the official name for kratom.
So yeah, but I
Sorry.
mean,
Don't make me say it right now, please.
Can you say it? Can you please tell our audience?
Can you do
your bula.
Yeah. Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
well, I think that's like, I mean, we say all the time, you know, for consumers, when they go to a kava bar, like the kava tenders or, you know, whoever's there serving is like the first line of defense.
Yeah.
So having those SOPs in place for
Mhm.
staff to be able to like, hey, this is kava, this is what's going to do for you. This is kratom, or right, if this is Delta 9, aka this is like, you know, cannabis that's going to get you, you know, in a different spot. It's crucial, right?
Yeah.
And all kava bars should be following, you know, something like that.
And we've all walked into bars, you know, I'm a big proponent. I love my kava tenders at all the bars, but I know I've walked into bars even around the country where people are just like, hi,
Yeah.
and then they walk back to their phone.
Or
and
the
it's like-
kava tender isn't
Yeah.
educated.
That was
yeah.
where we were at Alchemist. My husband and I were very adamant when we hired our staff. We're like, we have to go to the tables, ask people if they want more drinks, make sure that you explain what it is. And I think we have an amazing team of people that do
You
that.
do.
Because we were really like, this is important. And this, you don't want someone leaving here with a negative interaction. You want someone leaving here like they feel like enlightened, like they
It's
understand.
intimidating.
It
Even
is.
like, I'm sure everybody can tell now, I'm very chatty. I'm not shy. So even for me, when I walked in, I was like very intimidated the first
Yeah.
couple of times. I would have to, you know, I would ask like secretly, like, okay, like, because even the colors, like, I would order a kratom drink and they're like, well, what color do you want? I'm like, shit, I don't know. Color.
Brown.
Pink? I don't know. And so they're like, well, you know, and so, you know, they can explain all of it to you. And once you ask, they do. But it is intimidating to even ask because I'm like, I don't want them to think I'm old. It's all the Gen Zers.
Yeah, but I think that's another great thing about a kava bar is for the parents, like for those moms, because like we were saying earlier, the mommy wine culture, it's like you want to be in the club, you want to fit in on the play dates with the other moms, you want to talk about, they're all talking about the bottles of wine that they drink, and it's like you want to fit in with that. And like how awesome that you can go to a kava bar, you can see these other moms, you can meet some other parents and find that
safe for your
camaraderie.
kids.
You can bring your kids and like put them in the corner with the games, because most kava bars have games, and just like relax.
Well, and I will say kava bars, and I think this is, I was just in North Carolina yesterday.
You're a trooper, girl.
It's a collection of the biggest assortment of people that you'll
Yes.
ever
Yeah,
meet.
Yeah.
really
And
is.
it's people from all different walks of life. Like, and I think that's really cool. Like, we have, we'll have a lawyer come in and do his work while a bunch of nursing students are doing their work in the daytime. And it's like, you have such an assortment of, I don't even want to say like oddballs because I love them. It's my community.
Yeah.
Like these are my people, but everybody's different. Everybody has their own, like, like eccentricities. Like everybody's just like unique in their own right. And I love that about kava bars. And I think, maybe that mommy culture of what you have to wear and what you have to look like and what you have to be like doesn't have to be what you have to fit into. And I think kava bars are really embracing of that. Like for anybody that just wants to be a part of the community that welcomes you and welcomes you for who you are.
I totally agree. That's the impression I get of pretty much all kava bars I've ever been in is, everybody is super nice and you don't have to worry about people being drunk, like, what we talked about, but it's set up like a bar too. It's like there's pool tables in there too. And it's like, you can play pool and you don't have to worry about like somebody bumping into you and then like guys getting into a fight and stuff like that. And so it's like, everybody's very nice for the most part and accepting, and you don't have to be anything special. So
I love what you said too about what you're wearing, because like literally the three of us have texted each other like, what are you wearing to dinner? And like you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I know that's always first instinct with girls because you don't want to shove. We did that today.
Yeah.
We're all wearing a t-shirt. And you too. You came in uniform.
It's part of the podcast.
I know, we came in uniform.
It's Kava and Kettlebells, aka the fitness
I
boost,
know.
right? But I like what you're saying though, and this is for people out there too who might not know the scene and might not have been to a kava bar. And like even thinking now, like if we were to go to a bar together and stuff like that,
I would feel awkward as fuck. Like I don't know what I would do.
Like I would make sure we would go to like a higher class bar because like even right now, this point in my life, like I'm 35 and we've had our times at the bars. Like back in the day, we used to go to Vegas all the time. It was, younger and, just different period in life. But like there were so many times I remember almost in like, not that I was instigating it,
getting in fights. So.
but for some reason, I don't know, just always something that always came up, right?
Yeah.
It was always
Every
something
time.
about
The bar?
It wasn't him, but it's almost like Charles appears very intimidating, and he's not.
I have that face that people.
He does
punch.
like that.
I do. Like, no, seriously, like
He does though, and it's like people think that he's staring at them. People think that he's being aggressive, and he's like, I'm just standing here, and so people will be like, "What's up, bro?" And he's like, "Dude,
And they've had a couple drinks.
Exactly.
So even now,
Exactly.
the thought of like going to a bar and being around like other drunk dudes and stuff is like, dude, I just don't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
I don't have like I'm a dad.
And
I have
also
a
pursuing a
career,
beautiful
you know what I'm
life,
saying?
like,
So like I got nothing, like there's nothing for like, and I just when I think of bars, that scene is just so like gross, man. I'm like, I'm not part of that. So I think for a lot of parents out there listening, like if you want to go out and just like have a nice night or day, and you don't want to deal with stupid drunk people
And dirty bars, like you said, gross, and that made me think too. Another thing is like if you're in like a dark bar, it's always like sticky and filled. But kava bars are really super. I mean, all the ones I've been in are super clean.
Yeah,
because people aren't like spilling their drink on each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, it's just like it's a whole different. Like you don't need to worry about, like I can leave Heidi at that kava bar and not worry about having to come back.
No, really.
But yeah,
I mean,
that's a serious thing that especially, men with, their female companions and that you have to worry about at a regular bar, and you don't have to worry about that at a kava bar.
Yeah. No, it's a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
So are you about to say something? Sorry.
No, it's going to wrap it up.
Cool. Well, I was going to, one last thing. So, and this is more for you all. So give a message to the moms out there, right? Who might be, I don't know, struggling or might be, with alcohol, especially too, which, like, again, at the end of the day, like, I'm not trying to be judgmental. We're not trying to be judgmental. Like, we understand that, especially being a parent is hard, right? And like, I'm not a perfect dad. Like, I feel like every week I'm like, man, I could have done this better. I could have done that better, So trust us. We're not coming from a judgmental place.
We're coming from experience. Like we get it. We are all parents.
Yes.
We've all been there. We've all raised our voices and, we get it. And we get how helpful Kava and Kratom has been.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say my piece there that like, especially like as a dad, Kava has made me much more patient, much more willing to, you know, I want to say like, spend time with my kids, but it's much more, after a bad day or whatever, I'm much more willing to have a little bit of kava, kind of centers me, grounds me, and I can go, be a good dad. So to the moms out there, who might not have tried kava or kratom before, like, why should they try it? And, what benefits do you think they'll get out of that?
I'll look right into the camera for this one.
Yep, they'll check it out.
Look in the eye.
Zoom.
I just spent 13 hours in a car with my 1.5-year-old boy twins. I get that there are a hard time in parenting, and I get that you have to unwind. And I will tell you, botanicals are a beautiful way to do that. They center me. They help me become a better mother. It's like resetting myself, recentering myself, being able to take a breath and be like, I can do this. And where it doesn't change my personality. It doesn't affect what my children see from me. It doesn't alter, my abilities as a parent and as a loving and attentive parent. And I think just not drinking and adopting a botanical lifestyle, my husband and I are better parents. And I think
100%.
we're better partners even. There's less arguments over stupid things. There is more being on board with each other because we're there. We're cognitive and we're able to communicate with each other effectively. These botanicals help you, lift back your anxiety. They help you just open up and be, more, just there. And I'm really appreciative that I discovered this world in 2017 and that it is now very much a part of my life. I think my Instagram is like botanicals, kava, and former teacher. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is such a big part of my life that I'm appreciative to have this community, meet wonderful people like you guys, and, just feel like I belong somewhere.
I do want to say, like, I think the piece there on like, partnership with like, your spouse is massive. Cause I know like, even for like us, we do an episode, we have an episode on sex and kava, and it's not like as X-rated as it sounds. It's more or less like connecting with your partner.
No, I listened to it. It was good. It was a good episode.
So, but it does, I think, help relationships in the sense that like, alcohol can be such like a flame, right? It can be such a flame to whatever issues are going on. Whereas drinking some like kava, right, it really opens you up, it relaxes you. And I think it just makes for an overall like a household much more smoother.
Yeah.
And relationships wise too. So I think that's a good that you touched on that as well. So
Yeah, I agree. I think there's nothing wrong with needing something to unwind. I feel like, so people go to then the other extreme where they're like, well, if they're against the mommy wine culture, they say, well, you shouldn't need anything to unwind. Like, you shouldn't need anything to. It's like, well,
yeah,
you need something.
and I feel like, again, not judging anyone, I feel like a lot of that's like, I've heard that from people who have one kid. It's like, okay, well, one kid, you actually do. And so it's like, this can be, if used responsibly, this can be, kava and kratom and all the botanicals, a safe way to have that ability to unwind with your kids present. Because again, that's the whole problem here is people are doing the wine and having, all of those drinks in front of their kids to unwind, to hang out with them. But it's like with these, you're not going to be inebriated. It's not going to make it so you can't change a diaper or have a conversation. And so it's a safe way to still have that outlet available. You don't have to just completely erase that because, again, once you get over one kid.
Yeah.
I do agree that you said like there is the one camp who's like you shouldn't need like anything. It's like, all right, like
and to me, it's not what I think is important to draw the distinction is life makes you. Like you need that from life. It's not your kids that you need it for. It's just life. Life is hard. You had a hard day at work. Plus there was a lot of screaming with the kids, which sure didn't help. But you want to be able to have something to wind down and still be present with your kids and still be a parent. And that's why I think it's so amazing. Botanicals are so amazing. Well, girls, it has been amazing. Thank you so much. I would love for you to tell our audience where they can find you guys on social media, where they can visit your kava bar, buy your products. And yeah, we'll go from there.
Go ahead. So Alchemist Kava is in East Naples. We are at 4121 Tamiami Trail East in Naples. You can find us on Instagram at Alchemist Kava. We also have our website, alchemistkava.com. We do sell lemonades there, so I will pass off the baton to you.
Yeah, so you can buy lemonades at Alchemist Kava, or you can go on my website, drinklemonade.com. You can also find us on Instagram at drink_lemonade.
All right, ladies. Well, we always like to end with a bula. So thank you guys so much for joining us. This has been amazing.
Thank you for having us.
Ooh, messy
Ooh,
bula.
yeah.
Second party, that was funny.